In these early years of the 21st century, the New Age movement has become a familiar part of society. New Age ideas, practices, and terminology are a pervasive part of the everyday lives of millions of people. Now, when you hear the term New Age, a variety of things may come to mind. This term may conjure up the image of people sitting in a circle sharing some Eastern spiritual experience. Or perhaps you'll be reminded of a news story about a celebrity employing the techniques of feng shui in their home decor. Or maybe you'll think of a communal living situation where handicrafts and vegetarianism are the focus of group life. Many of us know or are related to people within this very diverse family of religions and philosophical groups. And perhaps you've wondered about what they believe and practice. This video is designed to give you insight into the overall origins and worldview of the New Age movement. Just as with our other videos in the MindCuisine iKnow Religion series, the goal of this session is simply to present the facts in order to prepare you to intelligently discuss the subject with those around you. So let's begin with a basic overview. The term New Age is used to describe a loosely related collection of religious, philosophical, and special interest groups which came together in the second half of the 20th century. Its main ideas and values have been taken from a variety of ancient sources and traditions, and then combined by the groups with more modern influences from things like science, pop psychology, and self-help methodology. The movement, now known by the term New Age, had its modern beginnings in the 18th century, that's the 1700s, but developed significantly and gained wide popularity within the last 50 years. Though it's a matter of much debate as to which groups belong within the New Age category, certain terms help classify those who hold some form of New Age ideology. Examples of such terms might be holistic, oneness, synergy, unity, awakening, self-actualization, potentiality, and others. And though some would take pride in using the term New Age to describe themselves, others might use such descriptive terms as human potential, Aquarian, and cosmic consciousness. Or they may prefer to use some form of the term spirituality, as in Native American spirituality, feminist spirituality, and even secular spirituality. It's important to keep in mind that the organizations classified as New Age do not necessarily see themselves as part of a larger movement. They may actually stress significant differences in ideology between themselves and other groups. For example, there's a wide variety of religious views within the New Age movement which may have glaring contradictions between them. Another example might be the diverse and sometimes conflicting array of alternative healing and holistic wellness perspectives. Various segments of the movement may also focus on social theory, science, health, psychology, parapsychology, or futurism, each with its own very unique perspectives. Then there are those that might be considered as fringe members of the movement. Such groups may have a particular interest in things like astral projection, UFOs and extraterrestrials, or a revival of ancient European pagan practices. On the other hand, the diverse portions of the movement are held together by certain common perspectives, including a general distrust of traditional values and institutions, a willingness to experiment with new ideas, an openness to eclectic experiences, and a commitment to diversity and pluralism within society. New Age organizations also stress the creation of a progressive spirituality without traditional limitations or confining doctrines. Most New Age groups also hold to a holistic view of reality in which mind, body, and spirit are closely related to one another and intertwined with the universe. Other recurring links between these groups can be found in their commitment to working for a new era in human history in which spiritual consciousness and harmony will come to planet Earth. Well, although the beginnings of the modern New Age movement can be traced to a select group of non-traditional thinkers in the 1700s, its roots draw from very ancient sources, including the religions of ancient India and China, the Gnostics of classical Greece and Rome, ancient pagan lore, and even the mysticism of medieval Jewish Kabbalah. After the Protestant Reformation and the Roman Catholic Counter-Reformation of the 16th and 17th centuries, and the wars of religion which accompanied those developments, some people in Europe and North America began seeking alternative types of religious experience. This quest for personal spiritual experience took place both within accepted Christian bodies as well as outside them. For example, within Lutheranism, a movement called Pietism stressed prayer groups, personal devotion, and holy living. Likewise, the growing popularity of Freemasonry, with its ties to ancient Gnostic ideas and practices, stressed alternatives to standard Christianity. Add to this the quiet but widespread experimentation with things like the occult, and it's clear that the time leading up to and including the 1700s was characterized by an array of spiritual paths. From this setting, 18th century spiritual trailblazers began to combine various bodies of ancient wisdom with the new discoveries of science to create fresh approaches to spirituality and human well-being. This group of spiritual innovators included a number of key figures. For example, the Swedish mystic Emanuel Swedenborg combined significant personal accomplishments in science with elements of Christianity and his own psychic experiences to found Swedenborgianism in the mid-1700s. Several decades later, Franz Mesmer employed energy channeling techniques and the use of magnetic forces to heal various prominent figures of his day. His techniques are referred to as mesmerism, and of course, we get the English term mesmerize from him. The 1800s saw the rise of movements such as spiritualism, which attempted to communicate with the dead and to predict the future using seances and other occult methods. This was actually a very popular practice among Europeans and North Americans during the 19th and early 20th centuries. One good example of this phenomenon is the fact that Mary Todd Lincoln, wife of President Abraham Lincoln, held a number of seances in the White House to communicate with her deceased children and other relatives. Honest Abe even attended a few of them himself at the urging of his wife. And there were many books and articles published during this time relating spiritualist experiences and predictions of future events. Popular about the same time as spiritualism was the 19th century movement known as Transcendentalism, made famous by American writers such as Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau. Transcendentalism taught that nature and human beings were inherently good, but suffered under certain restricting influences within society, such as organized religion and government. More specifically, Transcendentalists believed that the institutions of society acted as a corrupting force on the dignity and independence of individuals. They believed that true community could only be formed by truly self-reliant individuals. Transcendentalism added to the distrust for conventional religious groups, and it increased the interest in personal spiritual experimentation. Building from these movements were others such as Theosophy, a religious philosophy popularized in the mid and late 1800s by Madame Helena Blavatsky. Theosophy is based upon the belief that the wisdom of ancient Hinduism, Buddhism, and other Eastern traditions could be combined with Western science to bring about a new era of human progress. Another figure very prominent during the middle 1800s was Mary Baker Eddy, who claimed that spiritual voices directed her to write a book called Science and Health with a Key to the Scriptures. In her book, Mrs. Eddy blended certain ancient Gnostic ideas, holistic health teachings, and mind-over-body techniques to achieve optimum wellness. Mrs. Eddy's teachings would form the basis for the religious group now known as Christian Science. Following these early thinkers were important Eastern figures like the East Indian Swami Vivekananda, who introduced Hindu concepts and philosophy to the West just before the turn of the 20th century. He would be the forerunner of a series of Indian gurus who would tour Europe and North America spreading Hindu religious ideas. Then there was George Ivanovich Gurdjieff, an Armenian subject of the Russian Empire who traveled widely in the West around the turn of the 20th century. He taught his unique human potential philosophy called the Fourth Way. Gurdjieff's philosophy taught people to focus their attention and energy in more productive ways, minimizing unproductive activity. New Age ideas were popularized by means of a very influential journal called The New Age, founded in 1907. The New Age published articles by contributors such as George Bernard Shaw, William Butler Yeats, and H.G. Wells, which would make a huge impact on literature, art, and political thought. The spiritualist psychic stream of the New Age was championed in the first half of the 20th century by the famous sleeping prophet Edgar Cayce. Though a devoted Christian during his early life, Cayce claimed to be able to heal people and to solve personal problems while in a sleep-like state. He also claimed to be in communication with spirits who helped him recover forgotten truths about the ancient world, such as the existence of the lost but advanced civilization of Atlantis. Another contributor to the New Age thought in the early 20th century was Carl Jung, one of the fathers of clinical psychology. Jung believed that human beings are fundamentally religious as an element of our very core nature. This led him to a lifelong study of religion and philosophy as a vital part of his research into the human mind and human potentiality. Well, switching gears a bit, the 19th and 20th century saw a revival of interest in ancient Druidism, especially in the British Isles. And since that time, Neo-Druids have held annual festivals at the ancient pagan site of Stonehenge in southern England, as well as in many other locations. Of course, Neo-Druidism is part of a wider contemporary revival of pre-Christian paganism in Europe. Examples include Norse pagan worship in places like Norway and Iceland, and the modern neo-pagan movement, which spans many countries. Now, I should be clear. None of these organizations or people would be technically classified as New Age in and of themselves. They each had their own emphases and objectives, and some of them would have disagreed strongly with some of the others. But each of them, as well as many other personalities and groups I did not have time to mention, served as important sources from which the New Age movement would later draw. All of these streams of influence synthesized in the second half of the 20th century to form what is now popularly called the New Age movement. Well, people who were alive in the 1960s will be familiar with the wide interest at the time at the coming age of Aquarius, made popular in a hit song of that title by the Fifth Dimension. It was originally written for the Broadway musical Hair, and the song describes the passing away of social strife and the coming of an era of understanding under the astrological sign of Aquarius. Then there were the Beatles. Especially in their later periods, the Beatles moved increasingly into themes and styles which would promote New Age ideas. George Harrison's My Sweet Lord and John Lennon's Imagine are examples of this emphasis. And of course, we should not forget to mention several other prominent factors in the New Age movement during the 1960s and 70s. Dr. Timothy Leary was a professor of psychology at the University of California at Berkeley, who promoted the use of psychedelic substances both as a form of therapy and as a vehicle for expanding the potential of the human mind. Transcendental meditation, or TM, was introduced to the West by the Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who taught his specific form of Hindu meditation in a series of world tours from the late 1950s through the 1970s. Transcendental meditation involves the use of a mantra, which is a word or syllable thought to have spiritual power, repeated twice daily for 15 to 20 minutes. This focused meditation is supposed to foster relaxation and reduce stress, opening the mind to new potentialities. Maybe you've also heard of the Findhorn Echo Village in Scotland or the Esalen Institute on the coast of California, both of which are communities focusing on human potentiality since the early 1960s. These years saw a host of New Age books on the market, from Linda Goodman's Sun Signs to Shirley MacLaine's Out on a Limb, Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, and A Course in Miracles by Helen Schucman, as well as the more recent human well-being books and seminars of Deepak Chopra, have followed in this train of best-selling New Age publications. Though there's debate on this point, the term New Age movement first came to public notice after the harmonic convergence of 1987. On August 16th and 17th of 1987, people from around the world gathered in a number of key locations such as Stonehenge in Great Britain and Mount Shasta and the Golden Gate Bridge in the United States to participate in the great convergence of 6 planets in the solar system, plus the sun and moon. Organizers like Jose Arguelles saw this planetary alignment and its correspondence with the events in the Mayan calendar as significant in ushering in a new era in history. So, by the early years of the 21st century, the New Age movement had come of age, so to speak, combining many streams of thought to promote freedom of belief and experience in order to achieve personal spirituality, well-being, and potential. This stress on individual experience is usually blended with a sense of global community, social responsibility, and environmental sustainability. So, with such a miscellaneous background, are there any threads of belief and practice which tie the movement together? And though there are no specific common doctrines, they tend to look at certain categories of belief from a common perspective of diversity. So let's start with the New Age view of truth. New Age groups share no single body of scripture, but are free to gather ideas from many different sources, including Asian religions like Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism. Some groups focus on the even more ancient traditions of tribal shamanism. Along with these sources, elements of standard Judaism, Christianity, and Islam may be added to the mix. Factor in a wide range of concepts and practices from health, art, science, philosophy, and the occult, and it's easy to see why so many people find the New Age movement difficult to grasp. So in terms of specific scriptures, New Age organizations feel free to obtain spiritual truth and guidance from many sources as wide-ranging as the Bible, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Egyptian Book of the Dead. There is also a special emphasis on personal acquisition of truth by looking deep within oneself through meditation or other techniques. Some groups claim to have access to secret knowledge from occult or esoteric philosophies. But what about the universe? The cosmos has both a physical aspect, stars, planets, etc., and a spiritual aspect, which, though invisible, is still very real. Some types of New Age spirituality may see the universe itself as a form of God. On the other hand, some groups teach that the universe is not fully real at all, but exists as a shadow or echo of ultimate reality. How is God viewed? Most New Age groups tend to favor the idea that God can be conceived of in a variety of ways, according to individual convictions. Though not all New Age philosophies and religions are centered around a belief in God, those that do generally have a Unitarian view. That is, rather than being personal, God is often understood as an impersonal force or power which gives life and energy to all that exists. This idea would be similar to the concept behind the popular Star Wars movie series, in which the Force has both light and dark aspects. So, New Age religions may conceive of God in a spectrum of ways, such as pantheism, in which nature is essentially a physical manifestation of God, or panentheism, in which the universe forms one part of God. Deism holds that a supreme being created the universe, set it in motion, and so forth, but does not now intervene in its affairs. Paganism is a revival of the religious beliefs and practices of ancient Europe. It conceives of divinity as a collection of gods and goddesses who rule over particular aspects of nature. Goddess veneration is a form of paganism. The worship of a supreme goddess may manifest itself as a female creator or as a composite feminine deity representing numerous goddesses from various traditions. Closely related to the concept of God are lesser spiritual entities. And rather than talking about God, some New Age groups focus more on these other types of beings whose nature is spiritual. Such beings are not necessarily considered gods, but may belong to various orders of beings such as angels, spirits, demons, demigods, powers, etc. Spiritual entities may even be seen as creatures from other part of the universe, or as deceased human beings who have ascended to higher levels of spirituality. Some groups teach that certain people may naturally possess the ability to communicate with these spiritual entities through spiritual channeling. How about Jesus? Jesus of Nazareth is often seen as one of these spiritual entities, or perhaps as a person whose insights were gained from such beings. He may be considered to be an insightful teacher or a spiritual master similar to those in Eastern traditions. Jesus is most often considered divine among New Age people only in the sense that everyone is connected to the divine nature. Many of the teachings of Jesus found in the New Testament Gospels are interpreted to fit with these kinds of perspectives. Because the cosmos is seen as a manifestation of God, and because people are part of the cosmos, humans may be seen as emanations of God. Consequently, people have infinite personal potential, which they may access by drawing on their inner divine nature. The reason why people sometimes do cruel and destructive things is simply because they're ignorant of their true identity and they fail to access their potential. People may overcome this ignorance through spiritual training, through personal development, or through replacing unhelpful social institutions with more progressive structures. It follows that many New Age groups teach the idea that people may achieve much more than might normally be thought possible. Along with the concept of mind over matter is the notion that people are progressing toward a higher state of being and that the resources and experiences of life are to be used to accelerate that purpose. A key idea on this issue is that thought creates reality. So, according to this view, instead of conforming our thinking to the hard realities of the external world around us, the human mind can actually control and create reality. In other words, New Age teaching has it that the mind, properly understood and disciplined, can control an individual's experience of reality in daily life. So the cultivation of a positive mental state is a necessity. Many New Agers are committed to spreading this thought over reality teaching so that the human race can generate the positive mental energy necessary to bring in this new age of peace and brotherhood. The means by which the higher human potential may be accomplished are many, from Taoist energy channeling techniques to herbal dietary supplements, Zen meditation disciplines, and ancient Gnostic philosophies. Magic and astrology may enhance self-understanding and help achieve personal growth. Reincarnation may allow multiple opportunities to achieve these goals. Let's talk about salvation. Though the term salvation is sometimes used among New Age groups, it's almost never used in the classic Christian sense of receiving cleansing, new life, and the promise of heaven. Most often the term salvation is synonymous with things like enlightenment, inner awareness, cosmic consciousness, or spiritual liberation. The ultimate goal of human life is to seek a profound and intuitive knowledge of the divine nature within each person, while the outer self is brought under control or is stripped away entirely. Nearly universal among the branches of the New Age movement is a belief in some type of life after death. Sometimes this takes the form of reincarnation, in which all beings come from an ultimate source and return there after many lives on earth. In contrast with the classic Eastern concept of reincarnation, though, as a wearisome cycle of slow enlightenment, the New Age concept of reincarnation is usually seen in the positive light of human potential and spiritual evolution. Some New Age groups believe that deceased humans can act as advisors in matters of life on earth or as guides towards higher spirituality. New Age groups which teach eternal life in a heaven almost always see this as the destiny of all humans regardless of past deeds. What about life on earth? Though some of the early founders of the New Age movement held racist views of European social superiority, current New Age thinking is committed to the equality of races and genders. That being said, many within the movement acknowledge that certain select individuals have a more highly developed capacity for achievement and spirituality. As to the current age, many New Agers conceive of themselves as living in a pivotal time in human history. The advancements of science and the coming together of many sources of learning and culture in the 20th century is often spoken of as an important turning point in the history of the planet. The astrological dominance of the sign of Aquarius and the fading influence of Pisces is interpreted as representing the diminishing strength of Christianity, symbolized by the sign of the fish, and the rise of a new era under the sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is most often symbolized by water, emphasizing the fluid, life-giving, and powerful dynamic of the new era. The coming age will be one of spiritual energy and personally fulfilling experience. According to New Age teaching, rational, linear thinking, typical of Western religions, modern science, and early modern philosophies, has proven to be a hindrance to true enlightenment. Instead, the new era will bring intuitive thinking, creativity, and personal liberation. Tolerance is of major importance. There's widespread belief that all religions, philosophies, and cultures are more or less equally valid. Because of this, people should be taught to cultivate tolerance for all sorts of ideas and practices. And though tolerance is a high value, there are certain exceptions to this general rule. It's often people who are committed to morally absolute systems such as Christianity or Islam who are criticized because they are seen as major obstacles to tolerance and understanding among people. Well, how has the New Age movement influenced our world? Groups are far too numerous to list and discuss individually. However, they can be divided into four basic categories or streams of the New Age. And I'm going to briefly describe each of these and give an example or two. First is the religious and philosophical stream. This category includes adaptations of Eastern religions such as Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism. And Transcendental Meditation is a prime example of a modern organization which draws from these sources. There are also religious revivals of ancient religions such as Neo-Druidism and Neo-Paganism, which I've mentioned before, as well as ongoing tribal spiritual traditions of many types. A widespread interest in the occult is manifested in Wicca, witchcraft, and spiritualism. And add to this a fairly recent upsurge in the practice of Kabbalah, which is a mystical and esoteric approach to medieval Judaism. Then there are aspects of Freemasonry with ties to their ancient Gnostic teachings. And all of these are significant components of this religious philosophical category. One example of a prominent religious group which many experts place in the New Age category is the Church of Scientology. In recent years, there's been much controversy about this organization. The Church of Scientology was actually founded in 1953 by Pulp Fiction writer L. Ron Hubbard, based upon his own system of self-help techniques he called Dianetics. Essentially, Scientology is a human potential organization with religious aspects. The organization teaches that humans are immortal beings who have become ignorant of their true nature, but who can regain their original status through a technique they call auditing. Auditing allows individuals to reprocess past negative experiences in order to resolve them and attain a clear mental state. The Church of Scientology receives specified donations in exchange for enrollment in various auditing programs. Critics of Scientology have accused the organization of excessive control over its members and intimidation of those who ask pointed questions. Its defenders have pointed to the many lives which have been positively affected by its programs and publications. Celebrities such as Tom Cruise, John Travolta, and Lisa Marie Presley have been members of the Church of Scientology and have spoken positively of its teachings. Then there's the health and vitalizing stream. For example, segments within this branch of the New Age movement may use aspects of Chinese Taoism such as Feng Shui, which is cosmic energy channeling through the orientation of physical objects and their interaction with the natural environment. Both Qigong and Tai Chi Chuan train people in the art of movement. They're often described as soft martial arts because they can be used both for self-defense and to acquire natural energy for personal betterment. Tantra is a set of practices used in both Hinduism and Buddhism. Tantra uses bodily postures, focused meditation, and even sexual techniques to increase physical vitality, mental cleansing, and spiritual enlightenment. Since food has a huge influence over mind and body, the practice of vegetarianism is often the preferred lifestyle among New Age folks. Paramedical practices such as therapeutic touch, naturopathy, and even some forms of homeopathy and chiropractic utilize theories and treatments not fully accepted by the conventional medical community. Of course, the writings of Deepak Chopra have much to say about human health and vitality and should be included in this particular stream. Next is the ethical and ecocentric stream. Some New Age people focus their attention on environmental protection or animal rights. Examples would be organizations such as Greenpeace or the Sierra Club, which are sometimes thought to have ties with the New Age movement. At the same time, other New Agers concentrate their efforts on preserving the customs and culture of tribal people, certain aspects of women's rights, or gay and lesbian issues. Lastly is what I can only call the special interest stream. Because the New Age movement allows for a very diverse range of factions, there are those involved in investigating UFOs and extraterrestrial beings, and others study legends of lost civilizations and search for evidence of their existence. There's a sub-branch of those with interest in exploring the theories of time travel and astral projection. And finally, some New Agers focus their attention on parapsychology, ghosts, and the paranormal. Critics of the New Age movement also come from a variety of sources. Consider the very different perspectives about the New Age from the following groups. Since the 1700s, many different types of Protestants have had deep misgivings about New Age beliefs and practices. For example, Southern Baptists have gone on record as saying that New Age ideas are unchristian. There have also been several popular Christian books claiming to expose New Age philosophy and some of the factions within the movement as satanically inspired. Roman Catholics have likewise described New Age practices as false forms of spirituality and New Age teachings as contrary to accepted doctrine. Catholics have been warned repeatedly by the Vatican to avoid involvement with organizations of the New Age movement. On the other hand, though the New Age movement has embraced certain North American Indian religious traditions, some Native American leaders have criticized the attitude of New Age enthusiasts as arrogant and disrespectful to the true heritage of Native peoples. These critics have sometimes used terms like plastic medicine men to describe people in New Age groups who practice Native American lore without fully understanding the culture or caring deeply about the people. While New Age groups typically value complete equality between men and women, some feminist leaders have also been critical. They have pointed out that, with notable exceptions, women have often played a lesser role in New Age groups. Some feminists have called for a greater celebration of femininity in the movement, and a few have advocated formal acknowledgement of the importance of goddess worship in correcting this imbalance. Of course, many within the academic and scientific communities have also questioned the New Age. In addition to warnings about building false hopes of world peace and personal wellness, many have felt that the emphasis on trusting certain New Age spiritual leaders and the emphasis on personal mystical experience can have harmful effects in the lives of followers. Well, let me see if I can summarize. The groups and organizations which make up the New Age movement have a profound impact on the contemporary world. However, unlike most organized religious groups, the New Age movement has no single body of scripture, no overall structure, formal membership, ordained clergy, creed, or holy site. Instead, the New Age is a diverse spiritual network which shares certain core values. These values come from a variety of sources and traditions and may be combined with more modern influences in a variety of ways. New Age thinking stresses a more progressive spirituality without traditional limitations, and the various groups tend to share a general distrust of institutions. Most New Age people also have a holistic view of the universe in which mind, body, and spirit are closely related to one another and are intertwined with the cosmos as a whole. Finally, New Agers anticipate the dawn of a new era in human history in which understanding and harmony will finally come to planet Earth. How the movement will adapt to the future is a matter of intense debate, a debate that can only be settled by time itself. On a personal note, by a strange coincidence in my own schedule, this session is being filmed on December 21st, 2012, the day in which the controversial Mayan calendar ends. I don't know what to make of this. It certainly wasn't intentional. But on second thought, it does seem fitting that a video about the New Age should be created on this last day of someone's old era. Or is it the first day of a new one? Be that as it may, though I'm not myself affiliated with any group considered to be part of the New Age, and though my own hopes of a better future are of a different kind, I too look forward to a new era on Earth in which rightness, justice, and peace prevail. In my tradition, we might even say, Maranatha. I hope this video in the iKnow series has given you a more complete picture of the New Age movement. At MindCuisine, our goal is to help you understand and discuss various subjects with greater clarity. You might want to check out our other videos and ebooks at www.mindcuisine.com. And as always, seeing things from another person's point of view, it may not change what you think, but it can certainly give perspective to it. I'm Michael Bogart. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.